Okay, hi folks. Sorry that took a while to set up because I'm getting less and less tech savvy. But welcome to Sunday. Happy Father's Day to all the dads and all of those who are celebrating today. It's been a while, so I'm hopping back on here to give you a little update, chat a little bit, explain why I've been off probably for like a month now at this point. My kitchen's kind of a mess, but we're gonna do some cooking because I do have to do some meal prep for the week. And yeah, just the usual, you know. I still have some of these dumplings that have been left over from when I bought them for grandma, so it's been like 5 months, more than 5 months now at this point. And some fish ball, so we can make some sort of like a soupy thing for dinner. I got some greens from the farmer's market. I don't know why these carrots oxidize so bad. They were not like this before I washed them. And these are radish tops. We got some purple radishes. I don't know if you can see, they have water in them. Let me drain that so I can show you better the purpleness of them. Then we have cucumber and dill, so I can make like a tuna salad maybe. Then I got some cute little bitter melon, and we have some purple leafy bok choy. I've never really seen this kind of purple bok choy before, so that was fun. These have all been washed already. I did that while I called my dad today. And a reminder to stay hydrated and take your vitamins. I did cut my hair. This hair has been in the making for the last 2 months. Very mullety, and a lot of the reason why I started cutting my hair was because I noticed that like there was an area of hair that was thinning right here. I know my head still looks pretty full of hair. That's my dad's and my mom's genetics. But there is a spot on my scalp where there is less hair now. So I thought, oh, maybe it's because I've had them really long and I kept pulling them back, and maybe it's time to ease off the pressure. So I started playing with my hair and cutting bangs and getting it shorter and shorter and shorter, and it just kind of like kept progressing from there. I just got a blood test result back last week, and my doctor did a panel on me that included a NAN test, which is for autoimmune issues, because I've been having increasing joint ache, pains, crunchy knees. It's very strange. The knees aren't quite popping, but there is some sort of like it's a very weird sensation whenever I like squat down. Both knees have this extra, almost like fluid sounding feeling in them. Very abnormal for me, never experienced it before. And my knees also get really, really stiff after I sit on my feet, which I've done my whole life. I've done it ever since I lived in Japan, and I've always been a floor girl, hashtag floor girl. So it was very strange for me where like 2 or 3 months ago, after I would sit on my knees for like 5 or 10 minutes, I would have a hard time straightening my legs out and standing on them. They don't hurt, but they feel super stiff, and sometimes if I stand up too quickly after sitting on my feet, my knees almost couldn't like support my body weight, and I almost like toppled a few times. So just noticing all these little changes happening, and I explained them to my doctor, and she was like, okay, well, let's see if you have arthritis. So we did a blood panel that included ANA, and it is possible that I have arthritis. In fact, it is probable, but it is also likely probable that I have lupus. So that's what that blood test is showing right now. And I'm going to go back 2 days from now to do a follow-up and probably do more diagnostics, but I am positive for some autoimmune stuff. Um, and the numbers look pretty high, so it's not like a starter autoimmune disease. It's probably already in like a pretty serious stage. So we'll just have to see. I've been missing the past month because I've been trying to do some organizing for my alma mater, Swarthmore College, which has been cracking down on student protests and student protesters, and obviously punishing the students who are protesting for Palestine extra hard. And in May, they started busting up encampments and arresting students, and also started instituting this thing called interim suspensions, where there's no due process for the students accused of breaking the student conduct, which has been changed this past school year from previous school years. A lot of wording has changed in the code of conduct, which is why we made this shirt. The shirt says, "Does this shirt violate Swarthmore's new code of conduct?" And on the back of the shirt, there's an excerpt from the new updated handbook, this code of conduct, that basically limits where banners can be displayed, and also says that you must get permission from the school before you hang up any banners. And how do they define banners? So a banner is any piece of cloth with basically any writing on it. And so according to the handbook, this shirt might be a violation if worn by students, technically, right? They've kept the wording vague enough that they can punish students whenever they see fit, which sets a very dangerous precedent for what students can and cannot do, and also which students will get punished for doing what. So even wearing a piece of clothing, any piece of clothing with alphanumeric numbers and letters on it is problematic according to the code of conduct. This is just one section that fits the display on a t-shirt, but there are very many other instances of changes to the code of conduct that basically prohibits speech and protest all across campus. There's also increased surveillance now on campus. There's cameras installed. Students are also accessing buildings with a new tracking system, basically. It's called the one card system, so you have to swipe into every building, in and out, which means that public safety and the administration can basically track where you've been, when you've been there, for how long you've been somewhere, which is, I guess, the future. But unfortunately, with all these technological advancements in the future, we are seeing them being used for very inhumane ways. So what are you going to do? Hopefully you can raise awareness of it, and hopefully you can gather people up and do something about it. And you may not succeed, but you might as well do it, because if you don't do it, then things will just continue progressing the way they have been progressing. And if you observe for long enough and carefully enough, you can see very clearly which direction things are going in. So that's what I've been doing. I've also been trying to hang out with friends now that I have sometimes more energy, but I think I unfortunately did a little too much over the last month, especially with trying to organize for Swarthmore with other alumni. So I've had a few pretty deep energy crashes. But that's what I've been doing with my life. And I've also been kind of feeling a lot of feelings that I can't identify in the moment, but very emotional sometimes, which is why I've just been trying to give myself some space to process those emotions. A lot of grief for a lot of things and people. So that's where I've been. Lupus and many other autoimmune diseases disproportionately affects women. Apparently for lupus, it's because of the role that estrogen plays, potentially. I don't know, I've only seen like a few videos going into lupus, and I've read a few Reddit threads about lupus. I just found out last week, so, or actually this week. But I started wondering, like, why is it that women have all these autoimmune issues at a rate of like 9 to 1, women to men, or even 10 to 1, depending on which diseases, women to men. And I've also been thinking about how, like, women are labeled the more emotional creatures. And I've been thinking about the body-mind relationship. So I think given my autoimmune history as a kid, it's not surprising that it's basically accumulating other autoimmune issues. But certainly there's a lot of really not good feeling things happening in the world right now. Not just in my personal world, but in our shared reality. And I think I've actually reached a point in my life where I know certain cause and effect now, even if I don't know in terms of like scientific knowledge. There's a part of myself that like feels like it checks out. So I'm not too devastated about new autoimmune stuff popping up, because all of this grief has to go somewhere. And there's been a lot of it. So thank you for listening, and thank you for being here. It is 4:48 New York time, and I'm going to try to cook some things. The temperature in New York has been going up and down. We've had several days where it's like 88 degrees Fahrenheit, and now it's like rainy and gray and in the 60s. And I think we're going to have a couple more days of 60s. And then suddenly it's going to be 88 degrees again. So the energy kind of shifts with the larger energy of the world these days. My energy sometimes is good and functional, and sometimes it's bad. I just had to take a 2-hour nap at 2 p.m. today, because that was just like, my body was just like, we gotta go rest. So a lot of things kind of mirror each other, which is why I don't really feel extra grief from my own circumstances anymore like I used to when I was younger. I used to like bemoan, why am I always sick? Why is this happening? Why is that happening? When is the stress going to stop? But now I think over the last 2 years we've seen a certain new level and dimension of reality in the world that you either have to accept it or you don't. And by accepting, I don't mean you just cave to whatever is happening around you. By accepting, I just mean recognizing that this is what the world does and what the world is, and you learn to move within what that system is. And you still have agency regarding what you do, but you may not be able to affect the change on the level you've been led to think you can, because we've had very successful forms of soft and hard propaganda throughout our lives. I've been reflecting on how much of my belief in romantic relationship and romantic connection has been formed by movies and narratives, stories that other people have created, and how maybe that was never the case, you know? But we all want it on some level, right? And that's why we have those stories. I think looking at my mom's life and hearing my dad talk about what he knows of my mom, she was always into reading novels, like really cute love story kind of novels, and maybe she lived in those novels, and maybe that's why it was so hard for her to not fully accept, like, the grimmer, maybe, the more bare bones and dog-eat-dog nature of this world. And she was always kind of resistant to working with what you can observe around you, and always choosing to side with the fantasies that fueled her inner world. And I think we need some fuel for the inner world, because we can't always exist within just what we see. But I think there has to be a balance. So I'm going to try to find that balance a little bit, and see what's possible, and try things out, but also not beat myself over the head with persistence on one way or another. At the end of the day, I think it is all a group project, even if it feels like it's only in your court. My cat is still alive. He is not eating well these 2 days. He's been turning down churro treats now. We did like a whole month of at least 2 churro treats a day, but he started like rejecting them again. So I'm just observing him. But, you know, in January the vet said he was gonna die, and it's June and we're still here. So I got like another round of memo basically, because I adopted him in June. So we celebrated our 1-year adoptiversary a couple of weeks ago, but you know, who knows? No one knows. My ANA speckled pattern. I don't know what that is. Let me see my results. There were 3 ANA related tests. So my ANA screen is positive, so I have something. The antibodies titer and pattern is 1 to 640, which is pretty high. And that's what signifies like what degree of autoimmune disease you have. And one site said that's pretty severe. And then the ANA pattern is nuclear homogeneous or homogeneous, which is associated with systemic lupus. I can't say that last word, but SLE, drug-induced lupus, and juvenile idiopathic arthritis. So that's the results I have so far. I have not spoken with my doctor yet about these results. I just asked for them to be sent to me. So yes, let's think about what I want to cook and how I want to cook it. I do want some dumplings for dinner tonight, so we'll definitely do that. And maybe I should cook these fish balls with my radish greens with gochujang. Okay. I'll get the water boiling to blanch our greens. And then I'm going to cut this purple bok choy away in a container. Hi, Memo. Oh, the boy was stalking me. He's not eating, but he's still moving around. And he still has the ability to like hop onto my bed and off my bed, so he's not doing too bad. He hasn't repeated that January episode of like not at all moving in a corner of the room, which was like the most worrying part. But can you see him? That little guy in the corner, in the left corner of my door frame. Hi, baby. What you doing? Oh, yes, come. Hi. You want some greens? Hi, baby. Oh, good yawn. Very good yawn. You're so cute. Look at those little eyeballs. Yes, I am talking to myself, Memo. I'm a crazy cat lady. I gotta do the part. You wanna smell? You wanna smell this? No interest. You know, come to think of it, I think my mental health has gotten better because I've let go of all of these fairy tales. My college, my alma mater, Swarthmore College, is known for its social justice legacy. It's a school with a Quaker beginning. And Quakers are especially known for their nonviolence and their openness to sharing and being in community with others. And I think with the recent punishment against students, it is really a mask off moment for a lot of institutions. All of these fairy tales that we've been sold are now not able to continue themselves in the face of a time where genocide is publicly endorsed, essentially. I still have this tofu too, so I think we're going to actually turn off this water, and I'm going to blanch the tofu first because I don't want to use that green water to blanch the tofu because we're trying to like wash away some of the what is it? What am I trying to wash away by blanching the greens? It's either potassium or some other thing that's supposed to be reduced for my kidneys' sake. That's the other thing with lupus too. It attacks your organs. Lupus is kind of actually like it's kind of like COVID in that it affects all of your body. So lupus can kind of wear down all your organs. So kidney, heart, lungs, all of that. Also your skin, a lot of joint issues. So I'll just have to live like a princess more and more. That's actually what my dad said when I told him, hey, might have this. What's my family history with this? He's like, we call these the royalty diseases in Chinese because you can't really work and do like a laborious lifestyle when you have all these autoimmune stuff. So I now have like a royalty disease because I just have to live like a princess. Oh, I think Memo just threw up. Let's go see. He hasn't been eating anything, so he's already thrown up once today. Yep, and he's throwing up again. My little anorexic cat. Hi, baby. You sure you don't want food? Sorry, guys. You're going to have to watch me clean up this vom first. And he pooped. Well, he did that. Hi. You okay, baby? Oh, babes. Did you throw up on the bed too? Oh, baby. Well, he threw up again in a third spot, and I can't find it, so it could be on the bed. Oh, just me and my sick cat together. Life is fun. Always be trying something new, huh? You feeling better? Where was your third plot of throw up, baby? You want to tell me or no? All right, I'm going to take out his poop. You keep an eye on him, guys. other kibble, baby? Should I bring you some other kibble? You want to try that? Okay, baby. Here's your cancer kibble. $60 a bag. You want to have some? You want brushes? Maybe some brushes? You want some love? Where's my love? Hi, baby. Yeah. I love you. Yes? Uh-huh. Feeling a little bit sick today. Me too, baby. I'm sorry. I'm glad you pooped though. You pooped. Congrats, babes. You pooped. Pooping is good. Pooping is so good. Yes. Look at how tall you are. What a tall long boy. Hi. Thank you. Okay, baby. I'm gonna let you rest. I'm gonna go cook, okay? Yeah. All right, we're back. I'm gonna leave you here because the back camera doesn't hit the same way. Angling, it gets into my microwave. So we'll try this angle. Fred is doing great. I've not heard from Aaron about anything that Fred is going through, so I think he's being a very good boy. Thank you for asking. All right. Let us turn this water back on. And I am trying to look for my black mineral salt, but I'm not seeing it right now. Here we go. I'm gonna salt the water with some black salt and blanch our tofu. And then we're gonna blanch our radish greens if it's because my diet is truly really bad. I don't think so, but maybe I've eaten too much cheese and organ meat in my past year, but my cholesterol is super high now, like really, really high, like dangerously high. It could also be a complication of all of these other diseases too, I think. Hard to say, but I'm gonna try to cut down on saturated fats a little bit, but I still have quite a bit of like meat in my freezer and cheese that I just bought before I learned of my sad cholesterol. So I'm gonna start moderating and probably stop buying. I'll have to do some dietary shifts as well. It also sounds like there are some dietary triggers for lupus people as well, but the biggest trigger for lupus patients, are you ready? Sunlight. And apparently also garlic, which is like, am I a vampire at this point? I think so. I don't go outside, I can't do the sun, can't have garlic. I sound like a vampire. Which also means I'm gonna live forever. I think mentally I'm like a 6.7 today, which is a little bit lower than it's usually been, but I think that's because it's really gray and gloomy outside today, and I'm also very low energy, and my period is due, but also running kind of late, so I think there might be some hormonal shifts in there too. I don't know how lupus like corresponds to estrogen, and I also don't know my menstrual cycle education well enough to really say at what point in your cycle is your estrogen the highest. But since there is a link between estrogen and lupus flares, I don't know, but maybe it's just gonna get like bad whenever I'm at this point in my cycle, just mentally and physically. It's easier knowing what you have. At least there's a guide now for like why you feel certain things and go through certain things. Doesn't make it any less painful, I guess, but on some level it does, because you're not just like, why is this happening? Kind of the same thing with like me learning that I possibly am autistic too. It just explains so much of the interactions I've had with people. I don't know if I'm actually autistic because I never got diagnosed, but if I did have autism, it would explain a lot of things, which makes it like less hard for me to feel troubled by it, because now there's just a reason why. But if we have any fellow lupus or autoimmune folks in the chat, let me know if you have any experience and tips, especially regarding diagnosis. I think I have like a much better doctor than I did last year this time. She seems to be willing to like run tests for me, whereas my previous doctor would pull that pretty common thing of like, oh, it's just you stressing yourself out, there's nothing wrong. And truly it is really hard because this doctor ordered x-ray tests for my elbows and knees, and those findings were just like, no, there's nothing wrong according to those tests, according to those x-rays. Nothing that you can see is wrong. But clearly, this has been hurting for no reason when I touch it, when I put any sort of pressure on it, and my knees aren't functioning the same way. So, like, clearly there's something going on. It's just that you can't always see it. And our society is based so much on, like, only the stuff you can see, that I think it actually blinds us to a lot of facts. And we just dismiss it. So learning how to see is also a practice. And seeing is not always done in the same ways. Are we ready for bolding? I would like to do a bolding. Ooh, that was a very discordant jarring one. Let's try a different one. Yes. That was fun. I did a meditation, like a guided meditation that's been sitting in my inbox for over a year now. It was sent to me January of 2024. It was a meditation held by a writing organization, I think in Portland. It was like a radical meditation, and it was obviously inclusive of all the feelings that we were going through when we saw the genocide starting and continuing. And it was really very much needed. I started crying during it because there's just a lot of feelings that I don't think you have access to unlocking until you really sit and let the world come into you and let yourself step outside of you. And in that meditation, obviously, it's not the same as me saying it to you right now in like 10 seconds, but there were stages of meditating about yourself and framing it in parallel to an autumn leaf that is falling from the tree, and how that is all connected to the world that it lives in, and how it connects to the cycle of life and death. And it was really helpful to have that reframe. Thinking about yourself as an autumn leaf is a very interesting exercise, bringing in perspective of who you actually are outside of who you think you are. Just another perspective to add into the mix. I really wonder what's going to happen in like a year or 2 years' time with all of this AI that we're developing, all of these manufactured videos. I wonder with the presence that I've made available to live forever on the internet, what they're going to do with all of that. The task is up to you to see if you can decipher the real from the unreal. Or maybe one day we'll discover that what is real and what's unreal is all in our minds. Very thin line. Because how is it that one group of people can say this is not a genocide and another group of people will say that it is? What is reality? What is mental illness? What is sickness and what is health? What is love? And what is grief? And why do we expect to have love without grief? Where do all of these things and compartmentalizations and separations come from? And what is it doing to us? Not seeking answers because I think the questions already hold the answers. They are always available already. So boiling tofu is actually a trick that my mom told me about. It helps you kind of coagulate the protein structure, I think, in the tofu, and it just makes it easier to cook with without it falling apart. Oh, baby! He just did such a mournful meow. I don't know if you heard it. But I like to just blanch my greens and my tofu so that I can make different meals by putting different condiments on it throughout the week. It's like an easy meal prep thing that you can customize on the day of, depending on what flavor vibes you're feeling. Just mix up a little dressing for yourself and then toss it into the tofu and the greens and whatever else you got going on. Maybe some greens. When Memo meows like that, I always think, is he so sad that he's trapped indoors? I think he has to be, no? But ultimately, aren't we all sort of just trapped indoors? I just watched the 3rd season of White Lotus, but I did not realize that I accidentally skipped episode 3. But I can say after having finished the whole season, except for episode 3, that I did not spot any plot holes. So I don't know if that means it's written well enough that you can miss an episode and not even like notice it, or if it's written so superfluously that you can skip an episode and not miss it. I found out because I went on Reddit afterwards to read commentary on what people thought about this season, and somebody had brought up the fact that like there were just so many unnecessary things, and in particular there was one person who mentioned the snake scene, and I was like, what snake scene? And then I googled snake scene White Lotus season 3, and then I pulled up this clip that was indeed a snake scene. And then I realized that it was in episode 3, and then I went back to watch episode 3, and I was like, oh, I did not see this episode at all. So that was funny. White Lotus's premise, season 1 through 3, White Lotus is a resort hotel. And seasons 1 through 3 are all taking place in different branches of this resort worldwide. So it's all kind of like satire commentary on luxury living and rich folks and how they are kind of like blinded and trapped by their own circumstances, and just like the ways in which they behave contrasted against the staff members at White Lotus, who are, you know, more working class and have to play this more subservient role in catering to these rich people who come to this resort. So this was firm tofu that's been boiled. So it was already firm, but it's just like a little more resilient after it's been boiled. It tightens the protein network a little bit so that it doesn't crumble as easily. What I will do, is I'm going to flavor my dumpling soup with some of this dill stock, because some of these are like kind of fibrous. So I'm going to like boil it in and see if I can get it to break down a little bit more. One of these days I also need to sharpen my knives. They are not sharp. I'm still gonna plug you in because my phone is old. Yeah, a lot of people said that they thought season 3 was less good. You can cook anything wrong unless it's poisonous if you don't cook it right. All right, some things are like that. But I think it's more a matter of like, have you discovered techniques that would make it more palatable to you. I think a lot of people don't like tofu because they're like, oh, it's tasteless and all of that. And I'm like, yeah, mozzarella is tasteless to me in the same way that tofu is. But, you know, we have mozzarella cheese sticks because it's fun to pull apart. But usually you see mozzarella paired with tomato sauce and other things. So tofu is all about how you cook it, what you cook it with. And I actually like the taste of bland tofu because I like bland stuff. So I have no problem with it. It tastes very creamy if you just give it a chance to be itself instead of wanting to superimpose your idea of good flavor onto it. Let it reveal itself to you. Kind of like dating a person, you know? We all have fantasies about who our ideal partner is. But sometimes it's best to just let him be. Let him surprise you. But speaking of partners, I've been watching like some how I got my lupus diagnosis videos, and it's so surprising how both in the video and in the comments, sometimes it's just like women saying, I found out about my diagnosis after I got out of a really bad marriage. I think about why it is that women have autoimmune diseases 9 to 1. I think about it. Stress is a huge part. So I think it's also a fine line between reducing stress and ignoring stress or repressing stress. I think stress will come no matter what, but I don't think stress reduction is always just like doing more to reduce your stress. I think it's doing less. Like sometimes you just have to work less. It's not about whether or not you go on vacation and do this and do that to alleviate or offset the stressful things. It's just you need to do less of what stresses you out. And I think looking back, dating stressed me out. Especially in New York. Especially dating people off of apps. I think that was really, really like a big factor in my health breakdown. On top of a genocide and on top of all of my own life changes, I think it was just really exhausting. It's really funny when I went to Swarthmore to canvass the alumni who didn't know what was going on in terms of the school repressing students. And we were just walking up to alumni and asking them if they wanted to learn more. And I remember this one alum was like very agitated feeling when we approached him, when I approached him. And he took a look at my shirt and he was like, basically, I'm paraphrasing, but he was like, I don't really know or care about this, but I want to know how it is that we got that guy in the White House. And then he walked away and like really angry and worked up. And I was just standing there and I was thinking, well, this is kind of how we got that guy in the White House, because we just do a lot of like finger pointing and blaming instead of actually taking action. And we're not together. We're not banding together to do stuff. So this is how it happens. Yes, Trump is in the White House, and yes, he's doing a shit ton of stuff, but like, we got here because of a lot of factors. And so this is just like a point of seeing in front of me how it is that we did get here. It is way easier to say orange man bad, but what are you going to do about it? Because I think at the end of the day, so much of our frustration stems from feeling a lack of agency or feeling helplessness. And I think that's what drives us to do explosively reactive and violent things, is us feeling like we're trapped, right? Like when I was trying to trap Memo to take him to the vet, like he didn't know I was trying to trap him to take care of him. So he bit me, he scratched me, he got really violent because he thought I was trying to hurt him. And I think this is what happens when people become like really reactive and violent, is like they've been trapped for so long and they want to get out and they see no way out, so they just do like explosively violent reactive things. But that's not how you solve things. But people don't want to really solve things, they just want things to be good. And that's how we get here. No maintenance, right? If I stopped vacuuming my house, it's gonna become a piece of shit within like 6 weeks. It's constant. You constantly have to do laundry. You constantly have to upkeep. Especially in a democracy. If the people aren't putting in the work, then the democracy is going to unalive itself, you know? So people talk all the time about, where is this democracy? Where is it going? Why is it happening? And I'm like, what have you been doing? I haven't been doing anything for the longest time. And certainly what I'm doing is not enough, but it's a group project. So I think when people get really angry, they're really feeling their own helplessness. It's really just a reminder of their repression of how useless they feel. So they get angry and protective about it because it's a self-defense mechanism. They don't want to think about how useless they've been. They don't want to feel like they have to be reminded of their powerlessness. And I get it, but that's also not going to solve anything. Wow, dill kind of smells like rubber tires. Strange, very strange. Very, very strange. Sage smells like BO to me, and dill smells like rubber tires. That's fascinating. Also gonna slice a little ginger in here. this week, there was a car mysteriously double parked on my street, which is a one-way street. And I got woken up at like 4 a.m. one day because like a huge commercial truck was trying to pass through this one-way street at 4 a.m. And he was honking and honking and honking and waiting for this double park driver to come out and like move his car. And it was like 20 minutes of this before the truck started backing out of this one-way street, because thankfully it was still just 4 a.m. and no other cars were present. But then like 2 more instances of that happened, and I was like, oh, this driver is not coming out. And so I saw my neighbor from across the street. I don't know this neighbor, but he basically started talking to cars and telling them that it's been here all night and they're probably not going to come out, and they're going to either have to squish through if they're a small car, or back down the way they came and get out, because this car is probably not moving. And you know, eventually, I think at like around 7 a.m. when like more traffic was coming through and school buses were trying to come through, he called 911. I called 311 to report it. And eventually, after an hour of the cop car sitting there, the tow truck finally came and hauled it away around like 9 a.m. But during all of this, I realized that like I can either seethe in my room, angry about the honking and the driver who's not coming out to retrieve his car, or I can go down and try to communicate like my neighbor was already doing, to cars, and tell them what's happening and try to help them out so that like it's not just incessant honking and accumulation of stress. So I went down like 3-4 times to talk to cars, to tell them what's going on. I called 311 and I tried to find a solution to the problem. And even though it did take several more hours for the car to get towed and for the traffic to return to normal, like I think the practice of participating in trying to find the solution and trying to do things helped me out. So at the end of the day, we don't want to do certain things because we think it's not our job or not our duty and obligation to do them, but is it going to help you ultimately feel better to do something rather than not do something? And you know, when I got down there, I saw this very curious thing where if this was like a SUV type of vehicle, all the car windows were down. The blinker was on. And there was like an unopened kid's toy in the back seat. And I realized that this is a car double parked in New York City with all its windows down. Like there must have been an emergency situation that the driver like just left the car like that. So then after finding those details out, it made me a lot calmer to be like, oh, dude, like this driver might be having the worst day of their life right now because they had to do this and they probably didn't want to, you know, instead of trying to assume that he was just like a reckless driver who abandoned his car in the middle of the street and didn't give a shit about anyone else. Like maybe he had no choice. I don't know what went on to cause this situation to happen, but that was probably the most interesting thing that happened this week to me, besides finding out that I might have lupus. Stress is a huge part of autoimmune disease. So I have to start thinking about how to alleviate, diffuse, and reduce stress for myself. And the stress is going to be never ending, so I just have to learn how to manage it. When I started having dysmenorrhea, which is just like really, really painful cramping, when I had my periods, I like it dawned on me that life is just pain management. pain's gonna come. You don't have control over it. You just have to learn how to deal with it. So it's a life skill that I've been working on, I guess, for a long time, maybe my whole life, but it's become more conscious in the last few years. I guess this is what growing old is. Eat pineapple. Okay. Sounds great. I love pineapple, so that won't be a problem. Thanks for that tip. I think it's time to move more slowly, y'all. Whatever that means to you. I think the world is moving too fast, and things are developing too fast, and technology is just enabling us to go faster and faster and faster and do more and more and more. But it's like chaotic. It's not really like directed production anymore. It's just like out of control. It's kind of like a terrifying version of the I Love Lucy chocolate factory scene. You know the one. Where she can't keep up with a conveyor belt. I feel like that's where our world is. And I know a lot of you are going to be like, well, I can't slow down. My job demands this X, Y, and Z deadline. And I understand. But I'm also going to keep saying it until some more dots are connected. And you see that you can slow down. And that maybe you have to slow down. And that if you don't slow down, sometimes life will slow it down for you. had some dumplings. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many is that? I have 10 dumplings left. I'm gonna do 5. 5 and 5. Oh, actually, I have 11. That one was hiding. Didn't know until I dumped them out. All right. Yeah, managing pain is for sure not easy. Sometimes it's the greatest, no pun intended, greatest pain that you can't overcome. And that's why some people die of opioid addiction and drug addiction. You know, there's many different kinds of pain, and sometimes we just can't deal with it. So yeah, you're right, totally. But the way I see it, we're all gonna die one way or another, so. I mean, the funny thing about White Lotus, I know it's meant to be a satire and all, but like, you truly get to see how different kinds of pain manifest at every level of socioeconomic level. And I'm not trying to like equate all these levels of pain, but it's just like, truly, everybody goes through some sort of shit, even if they have the most wealth to cover them. It's always a trade-off. Like, we talk about mental illness. I don't know, we haven't really popularized spiritual illness yet, you know? Why is that? Because I think there's a lot of spiritually ill things about our world, but like, they're not going to talk about it because I guess churches have, and churches make money. Religious institutions make money off of, you know, diagnosing you with spiritual illness. But it's just like, I guess if there's no money to be made, they won't create an illness out of it because they can't profit off of it. I got my dill here. I'll probably make some tuna salad with that. sit for a little bit, yeah? Read your comment. Drink some water. I know, so it's Pride Month, right? Faye just said your haircut is giving androgynous, and I love it. Yeah, I've always felt like I'm fine being a woman, but I've always appreciated being more androgynous too. So, happy Pride. Happy being queer. Happy not fitting into the little prisons that have been made for us, that we've taken a part in making. Ooh, a wet brush brushing cats. I don't even know what that looks like. He might like it. Sometimes I wet one hand and I do this, like a dry brush with a wet hand so that I dampen his fur. Because he doesn't really like me wiping him with a wet cloth. Sometimes he runs away. Does that mean your time with Bro Up and Barrel is potentially coming to an end soon? Why? Because of my autoimmune issue? I don't know. I'll keep working as long as I can work, but obviously if one day my energy level is so low that I can't work, then I can't work, right? Thank you, True Seeker, for offering help with your experience. Yeah, I've been reading some stuff. Like, some people do decades of medication for lupus, and I've read a few comments that are like, I've dealt with this since my 20s, 30s, 50s, and now I'm like 70, and I've decided it's not for me. Like, I've decided to go off the meds because I just can't handle it, because there's a lot of side effects that come with those meds too. For sure they help slow down the progression of the disease, but the side effects, yeah. Jubilee asked, further testing needs to be done. Did they check for rheumatoid arthritis RA test? I mean, when my doctor took my blood, she was like, we're going to test you for rheumatoid arthritis. So I thought this was a rheumatoid arthritis test, but on the lab work, it says whatever I read to you, and it mentioned lupus. So I don't really know how this blood work works, but I researched a little bit about what those findings are. Maybe it's rheumatoid arthritis, maybe it's lupus, maybe it's both, I don't know, but there's definitely something going on, so yeah, we'll keep diagnosing it. Probably we'll ask for a specialist referral. Yeah, thank you for your advice regarding what to feed Memo. I've tried to make him broth. I've actually bought broth, and Aaron's brought broth back from Japan. It's really hit and miss with this guy. He literally doesn't touch it. He's very picky with his food. So I just try to work with him. I try to offer him, you know, as you saw, like 5 different kinds of dried treats every day. I open up 1 or 2 cans, depending on how desperate I feel, like, trying to get food into him. I offer him a tube treat or 2, but sometimes he just doesn't go for any of it. Sometimes he really just wants to cuddle with me, and sometimes he doesn't want to be next to me, so I just go with the flow. And obviously I have to live my own life, right? Like, I think I spent the first half year of having him just really zoned into trying to like make him healthy and do all of what I can to do, but my health is also deteriorating, so I also gotta just balance that. So Yes, I bought some blueberries, so definitely anti-inflammatory foods. Any other anti-inflammatory foods you would recommend? Um, yeah, you can't really cure autoimmune disease. Technically, my IgA nephropathy that I had as a kid that flared again last summer when I got mono is not treatable. Like, it is treatable, it's not curable. You can't cure your own body attacking yourself. You know, it's like apparently some people have lupus so bad that they have to go through chemotherapy like cancer patients do because ultimately it's your body attacking your own body. So it's kind of like a civil war within. So this is all kind of echoing many layers of existence and reality. You know, there's a war within you, there's a war outside of you, there's a cosmic war that maybe we're not even seeing. Who knows? So I'm just getting to the point where I'm like, okay, this is it. Like this is the chaotic rhythms and cycles and seasons of life, and I'm just here to observe. And that's why that guided meditation really helped me to kind of like refresh a reorientation of perspective for me. Being an autumn leaf, how you are disconnected from the tree but reintegrated into the soil and becoming a part of another tree, you know, becoming a part of the world again, through the cycle of life and death. I've been thinking about how to become compost in a way, rather than becoming landfill. There's two types of trash, right? Compost gets reintegrated and is a form of enrichment. I'm not really talking about like the literal physical form of compost, although composting of human bodies I think has been developed. It is just pretty pricey right now. But more so of like, what do you do with your life that it nourishes others and the continuation of this cycle, you know? I think a lot of our society has been told to have us individually hunker down and look out for ourselves and just survive. But what happens when you expand your purview beyond your individual survival in this lifetime? I think it could be quite freeing, and also I think it's lifted a lot of my like turmoil and depression. My physical health is like pretty not great right now, but I think it's gotten to a point where I've learned so many things and seen so many connections that my mental health is actually the most stable it's been in a long while. It doesn't mean that I don't cry or get emotional. It just means that like I can comfort myself now and also know that it's not the end of the world to feel pain. That it is indeed just a part of the world to feel pain, and to find a way to kind of sink into it as a form of integrating myself into it rather than struggling against it to survive against it. So yes, I love baked tofu too. Coating on cornstarch and a shallow fry is like delicious. I think I'm gonna add a little bit of cumin. And a little bit of silk chili. Chilies are probably not good for me. They're probably inflammatory, but they are good for me in terms of my soul. And what a life I've lived, you know? Like, I've lived so many different kinds of lives, and now I get to live one that is like immunocompromised. Again, I think I was immunocompromised as a kid. I basically like skipped school for months at a time because my parents just had to hold me home so that they could observe, you know, my kidneys. So it's a very interesting experience. It's almost like I've like doubled over karmically and like returned to my childhood again. This time without my mom beside me. It's like almost like a dream state almost. It's weird to describe. So one of the fun things that I can do is like mentally romanticize this in a soulful way of seeing what it means to almost like have a do-over, but not quite a do-over. And some circumstances have changed. I don't know, if life were a dream and you were lucidly dreaming, what would you do? How do we free ourselves in a world that demands we keep ourselves prisoner? And do you actually want to be free? I look at some people and I just feel like maybe they don't want to be free. Like, you know, house cats. They might not be able to survive if they're actually freed. Sometimes I do this playful thing where I like open up the apartment door and Memo's looking at me and I'm like, here's your chance to go, do you want to go? And he looks at me like, what the fuck are you doing? And he doesn't go. The way that we see history repeats really makes me wonder if we are just exactly like AI, you know, like we run on programming. Why is it that we have these precedents of things gone wrong that we now label as wrong, 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 and we still do them in the current? Like maybe we can't help ourselves on a cosmic level. Like, you know, my more leftist friends really hate it when I say this. They like get really angry at me for saying this, but like, is there some level of predetermination? I think about this, right? And that's not to say that we all cave into the repressive tide of things, but rather to look at this as things will always be a battle of sorts. And some people are just going to be born into this camp, and some people are going to be born into this camp, and maybe there is always this resistance between the two camps, or more. There's more camps than we can see, right? And we all play a role. So now it's not like I'm angry at the bad people, even though they may frustrate me and make me extremely sad and depressed because of what they do. But this also gives me a reframe, an additional perspective, not the perspective, but an additional one, that like my role is to resist against their actions, and maybe their role is to resist against my actions, and this is the role that we're meant to play. And for us to always hone in on trying to win the war, I think may not be the way forward. I think, at least for me, I'm realizing that maybe the way forward is to just do what feels aligned within me, and to keep doing what makes me feel, proud isn't the word, but aligned with myself, you know? What can I do that makes me hate myself a little less? That makes me love myself a little more? That makes me appreciate how much security and confidence I can give myself through my own behaviors, thoughts, and actions? How can I be more aligned with the impulses within me to see alternatives. Ooh, massage and facials. I actually have started like massaging myself. I know it's not as effective as someone else massaging you, but there is a component to like calming your body. I think when we feel pain and strain in our bodies, we just want to like fix it. But what if like Memo, I can't just keep forcing food on him because he won't eat it. What if like Memo, I just also need to be brushed and petted, you know? And I don't have a bigger human to do that for me right now, like I can do for Memo, but I can also do some variations and levels of it for myself. Because maybe on that physical level, we need soothing and connection. And there's a lot of disconnection in our world, not just between different human beings, but within ourselves too. I think that's why we struggle with so much stress, anxiety, and depression, and all these mental disorders. I think maybe it's time to heed our own calls, to not fix things, but to help connect disconnections. I was reading this book, and it was basically saying that one day we might have universal income. And I asked one of my more political friends, do you think this is true? That, you know, the ruling class will permit us to have universal income? And he said yes. And I said, why? And he said, because it'll become untenable for them. As they take away benefits and social security and stuff like that, we will be rioting, because we will be pushed to a point where we have no other choice. So this is like the push-pull kind of dynamic, you know? We can encourage things to have more of a resistance effect sooner if we act sooner, but some people are not ready to act, and since it's a group project, we may just have to wait for things to get worse before they get better. But rest assured, even though we will lose a lot of lives and fantasies and fairy tales of what this world would be, there will be this battle for balance always. And we may lose the world as we know it, but the world is not going anywhere. This pot has water, dill, diced carrots, a little bit of Cotinopsis lanceolata, which is a root often used in East Asian cuisine that has been shown to have some sort of like benefits, health benefits, but it's called Cotinopsis lanceolata, very scientific name. I don't know if there's actually a not scientific name for it in English, because it's not a very prevalent ingredient in American cuisine. There's some dumplings that I bought half a year ago from my now deceased grandmother, trying to finish that up, and some fish balls cut up, diced up in there. What happened to her hair? I cut it. Do you think a fairy came in the night and took it away? That's also possible. It's me, I'm the fairy. And I'll keep cutting it as long as I have hair. Why not? Play with it. I'm kind of done being like pretty for other people. I want to be trying out new things and see if I can be pretty for myself. A lot of my physicality changed. My hair was thinning. My face was being bloated. I'm getting out of shape. So I'm like losing muscle, gaining fat, and my face composition changed. So my face shape changes a lot too when I get leaner and when I get fatter. So I was just trying to find a new hairstyle that like complemented this new change, because I don't want to resist against my changes anymore. I want to complement them and work with them so that I feel cared for by myself. So play is a lot of caring for myself. Trying out new things and testing my own boundaries of what my identity is a part of that play. Ooh, a silicone pet brush with a little water well. Oh, that's fun. Interesting. Flex wet brush. Lifts his head so I can get his chin. Yes. Memo does that too. He leans all the way back sometimes, and that's when I can clip one or two of his nails, is when his head is all the way back and almost hanging off the bed, that I can be like, snip, snip, and then he jolts back up and he gives me like a what the fuck did you do look. I have no idea what an alkaline diet is. For now, I'm just going to keep eating things in moderation, unless I have an emotional binge session. Then I will have an emotional binge session, because that's what I need in the moment. And, you know, I'm not going to force myself to do anything until I'm ready for it. And currently I'm not going to fuck with my diet too much yet, because I think putting restrictions on myself too soon can feel more disabling sometimes. And if I already role play as someone who is so severely ill that I have to restrict all these things for myself, I might accelerate me becoming that severely ill person who has to restrict herself. So, you know, just taking it one day at a time and gauging what my body needs and letting it do its thing. Kind of like letting Memo do its thing. Living with Memo and all of his illnesses and quirks has taught me so much about how to engage other people, how to engage with myself. And so for all the trouble he's put me through, it's been very constructive learning for me. So everything bad has all the good things inscribed within it, and every good thing also has a cost that you may not be ready to pay for yet. So just know that everything is balanced, even though that balance is not always superficially perceptible. Sometimes it takes time to let that balance really reveal itself. I do eat turmeric on a daily basis. I don't know what true turmeric is, but I've noticed that when I take too much black pepper, which I know makes turmeric more bioavailable, I have a skin reaction and I like flush really badly, and I've even gotten a headache once. So I'm listening to my body. Yes, I know the science says that you have to pair turmeric and black pepper together, but I still just take it easy on the black pepper because it does seem kind of inflammatory for me. I'm going to turn the heat off, let that carry over. Yeah, I was drinking matcha for a long time because I had a pound bag of it since like the beginning of the pandemic that I ordered for myself when we were in lockdown. And I finally finished it maybe about 3 months ago. And I don't know if you know, but apparently there's like a matcha shortage now because it's like hype everywhere. And so all the prices have gone up, and all of like the more better stuff is like super expensive, and all the cheap stuff is like out of stock. And I also don't know, because once things get hype, it tends to get adulterated because the industry is trying to keep up with output, and like I don't For the cheaper stuff, they might be mixing other things in there that's not matcha, and then for the more expensive things, obviously it's more expensive, so I'm just like thinking about what I want to buy. But if you have matcha recommendations, let me know. I'm totally open to it. Thank you so much for that suggestion. Oh, interesting. Amla. I've never heard of it. I don't know if it's available here, but I will keep an eye out for it. Thank you for these new things. Yes, I believe this is called a mullet, but you can call anything anything these days. Some of what they call modern mullets are just like they end at the nape of the neck, and they still have this kind of like sideburn shaven look. It's mostly seen on men, but I just learned because I was YouTubing a lot of hair cutting videos, and apparently there's like a modern mullet cut now that doesn't have this like long back end tail of hair. Doesn't matter what you call it, does it? But yes, I would call this a mullet. It is also called a shag. And yes, I think British people also use the word shag for something else. English is a funny language. There's a lot of words that double for other things. That gets very confusing for ESL people. You made your cat moan in pleasure. Yeah, Memo sometimes really enjoys my pets. Sometimes he almost like chokes on his purrs. It's really funny. He does like an old person gag thing where he's like purring so loud, and I think maybe like saliva is collecting in his throat, and he's just like that's when I know I've done my job well. And I might go short again, but short hair is also a lot of maintenance, especially if you cut it yourself. It's really hard to like get the back even, which is why the mullet kind of works, because I can see and reach all of this, but when it gets to like the nape of the neck hairline, I don't really have that much dexterity and like hand-eye coordination to do it in the mirror and give myself like an even haircut. So, but I have been thinking it might be nice to go short, and maybe I'll shave it again. Last time I shaved my head, it was not a great look, but I'm also like kind of a different person now. And also my mom won't get pissed at me now, at least that I can see, because she's not physically here. But the last time I shaved my head, my mom flipped, and I have not that much consideration of consequences now if I shave my head. I'm also kind of a hermit now, so it really does not matter. People might judge me for it, but I'm sure people are judging me anyway, so. Hey, Ram. What's a skullet? I'm gonna look that up. That's the fun thing about cutting your own hair, especially if you're like fully okay with going short, is you can keep playing with variations of haircuts and hairstyles until you shave it down. Oh, that's a skullet. Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna do that. My head's really big. But that's fun. A skillet is very reminiscent of Dumb and Dumber. Okay, let's eat something, shall we? Really well cooked dumpling mush, yum. I'm gonna let this cool. I'm gonna wash my hands. I'm gonna mince my blanched greens and where did I put my tofu that I cooked? Gosh, my memory is shot. This is how bad my memory is now. Oh, here it is. Hiding in plain sight. I'm gonna start a batch of the greens and the tofu to marinate it and to get the seasoning in them. Set some aside for the rest of the week. I'm going to add some of my carrots into this mixture. And I'm gonna dice dice up a couple of these purple radishes as well. Maybe some of the bigger ones. Then I bought this like gochujang from my farmer's market. It was pretty expensive, but I figured let's try some local farm stuff. Tastes pretty good. It's very spicy. Very rich paste. Look at the pretty colors inside it too. Do a little coriander. Do a little white pepper. Gonna grate a little ginger in here. I'm trying to up my ginger intake because I think if I do it the week before my period hits, it may have some calming effects on the cramping. Very anecdotal, but I don't think ginger helps during the period as much as it helps before the period. And then a little bit of this cumin that I'm trying to finish. And then this is the gochujang that I got from my farmer's market. Our beloved spork. This is what it looks like pre-mixed. Now we're gonna mix it up. And then I'm gonna drizzle some sesame oil in there. Sesame oil that I bought when Grandma was still alive. And I haven't been using MSG a whole lot in my cooking, but I still have this MSG from Mom. I feel called to put a little dash in, so we'll just put a little dash in. That's it, mixed. I'm gonna taste it a little bit. Carrots, radish, tofu, radish greens, gochujang, sesame oil, MSG, white pepper, black pepper, coriander, cumin. Pretty good. And this will sit in the fridge. That is spicy. All right, here's our probably much less spicy dumpling soup. Fish balls, carrots, dill, Cotinopsis lanceolata, and dumplings, a little cumin, a little soaked chili. No salt in this because the fish balls and the dumplings are already pretty salty. Very hearty, nourishing. It feels like it's good for you, that kind of feeling. The fish balls add like a much needed sense of umami, so like a little bit of like a seafoody, sweet and savory vibe. I mean, I honestly am feeling like I actually have more desire to do cooking everything in my fridge video. It's occurred to my brain a couple of times over the last 3 months, but my body just can't handle that kind of exertion right now, which is why I do live streams. My eyeballs are hurting from screen time usage. Eye strain is pretty bad. So if I were to film stuff, I would also have to edit it. And sometimes editing 1 minute of a final product of a video can take up to like an hour. I'm not even joking. And it may be because I'm just really inefficient. But sometimes making an hour-long video takes me like a whole week of editing. Putting in like 6 to 8 hours a day. So maybe, but let's see what happens to my body and health first. I don't want to put any exertions on it before it's ready for it. I literally can't. I crash in the middle of the day sometimes, you know? So. Kombu style sauce. Interesting. So there's like kelp in it, like seaweed. That sounds delicious. Oh, I have astigmatism. That's what I found out last summer too. Blue light filter. Okay. Is that like eyeglasses? Yeah, my eye doctor was like, yeah, it means your eyeball is football shaped, and I was like, that explains why I could never hang anything straight on the wall. I remember when I used to put posters up on my wall in my room, my mom would be like, why is that slanted? And I was like, it is? Huh. The more I learn about myself, the more sense things make. Alright folks, I think I might have a meeting to jump off to for organizing. I'm so glad to have been able to cook with you all today, and I'll come stream whenever timing works out and my energy works out, but as things stand, I think my energy is getting like a little bit diluted. So thanks for your patience as I figure things out. I do still post almost every day on Instagram though. I post memo, I post my readings, random shit that I see on New York City streets when I go for my once weekly walk. So I'm still alive, even if I'm not on YouTube. Sometimes it's just very soothing to disconnect from the outside world and to settle down into your own body, and that's what I've been trying to do when I don't stream, is just cook on my own and see what that feels like, see what kind of effect that has, and I've been enjoying the variety. So I hope you are able to find variations on a theme for yourself and to really indulge in the various flavors you're being served right now in life. Even the really bitter poisonous shit. Sometimes poison is an antidote to another injury. You just never know. So, multidimensionality to everything, and it just takes a little more engagement to really see the deeper side to certain superficial stories that you've always taken as truth. Truth is complicated sometimes, but also I think there is a gut instinct that guides us, that maybe a lot of institutions and societal structures have told us to abandon and disconnect from and neglect and dismiss. But seeing the breakdown in society happening now, seeing how much we don't actually know about the body, ourselves, the universe, seeing how much people just front and lie, saying they know things when they absolutely don't, is, I hope, a sort of observational permission for us all to trust ourselves a little bit more, or at least to explore ourselves a little bit more. Because even the people who claim they know might not know. Vets guess, doctors guess. Like, my vet was getting ready to have me put memo down in January, and now 5 months later, he's not doing super well. But he certainly doesn't seem like he's ready to die. He loves pets, and sometimes he even loves food. So just observe, just watch things as they engage and play out, and make connections that maybe you haven't made before. And I hope there's some light that shines through when you connect certain things. And I hope that light shines the way to having confidence in yourself and helps to allow yourself to guide you and maybe others around you again to things that would be much kinder and conducive to more connection. So cheers to more connection.